Hello and welcome to another episode of me painting again. Oh yeah, we're painting again, and today we have a canvas that I've pre-prepared with some white gesso. But if you buy a canvas, it's usually white. Then gesso it white because usually it's not been gessoed, it's primed with some weird spray that I don't know how they really do it, but I always gesso mine now. And then I have made some reddish acrylic out of some brown and red, and I've just thrown that on to create my drawing, really. But it's an underpainting because wherever there's a reddish brown and I miss it with paint, it's going to be reddish brown, and I'm okay with that. I just don't want it to be white. And plus, I have a design, so it makes it easier. So let's get this show on the road. So here's my palette, and I have got some ultramarine blue and white mixed together in one lighter and one darker. And I'm tapping. Tappy, 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 tap, tap with a 1-inch brush. Remember what I've said in another episode. You tap, you brush, like a tap dancer. The brush is like your tap dancing shoes, and you just tappy tappy tap. It just makes it easier when you're loading your brush for getting an even distribution of colour on your brush. I'm just using little circular motions as I fill this sky in, but you don't need to do any kind of motion really. just go for it. I just find like these crisscross strokes help with getting the colour on evenly. So the canvas is dry, there's no mediums or anything on there. I'm just using the paint that I've made. There will be a video going up soon on how to make your own oil paint, and hoping to make a few other videos on the technical sides of things. But we'll see. So I just added a little bit of ultramarine blue in there at the top just to make it a little bit darker. I'm just having fun really on this one. I've got a photo that I took when I was driving home, and I quite liked it. I didn't quite like it. I really liked the view, but this is not the same. It's changed. It's different. It's more like an imagined version of it. So I'm just tapping into some, that's permanent alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue. So I've got a bit of a mixture of paints on there. Some of them I've made and some of them I haven't. I just feel like I'm just trying to use what I've got and then introducing better paints as well that I make. So I'm just mixing a bit of this crimson in with the blue, and that way you get a nice lavendery colour. Don't forget to tap your brush. Just looking for areas where I want a little bit more of a crimson in there, or a blue, and I'm trying to really just feel what I want. It takes me a little bit of time to get the painter's mindset. The painter's mindset. Some people do practice paintings or sketches before they do a painting to help them get into that painter's mindset, like creative mindset. I find if I start painting a sky, by the time I finish the sky, I'm in there. So I'm getting some white and a bit of the lavender colour there. You'll notice my palette, I started doing it light to dark. So I have my lightest colours on the left, and then I go darker towards the right of the palette. I'm finding that system really helpful, actually. Getting used to it. Something I was reading about in this old book. I always buy really old art books because I find the older the art book, the better the information. I don't know why. Maybe I like the way it's written more or something. I almost feel like a gentleman as I read it. I don't know. But I just learn a lot from them. I suppose painting boomed, didn't it, a while ago? Especially oil painting. Victorian times. We had a bit of a craft boom. And you get to learn a few secrets as well when you read the really old ones. So I'm just softly putting in a little bit of that colour down there. And it's blending a little bit with that light version of it. So the idea is to have a lighter horizon and then it gets a little bit darker as it goes up. So I'm just mixing it up here and there now. Just mixing it, spinning the brush, spinning the bristles. So you'll notice I put some blue over the top of where this big tree is going to be. Now this is where the tree is going to be, if you don't know. And I made sure I've got some blue in there because I want that to show through the tree. Grabbing some more of that white, bit of the crimson, and a little bit of the yellow. Actually, the yellow that I've got on the palette is a water mixable one. You can mix them with traditional oils, it doesn't matter. Just use whatever you've got. Whatever colours that you like the best, use them. That's what I always think. So now I've got some of that nice yellowy colour and I test it and then I notice it starts to go green. Wasn't expecting it to go so green because I've got quite a lavendery colour on there. But yeah, I didn't have enough red in it. It needs to be a bit more reddish. So, a bit more of the crimson. Just to hide that yellow a little bit. We still want a bit of a yellow tint. But not too strong. We want to avoid the green anyway. We don't want it to be green. So that's better. So I've got to say, there isn't much paint on there. I tried the start layer. I don't use much paint, and then I start adding more as I go on. My computer's rattling. I need to remove it. not sure what's going on. Trying to stop it from rattling. Hopefully that's fixed it. So yeah, I'm using some light strokes. And I'm just sort of going with it. Getting that feel of clouds, getting that softness. And just letting that paint come off and being loose, free like a bird or a cloud. Free like a cloud. And this colour will just mix a little bit with what's on there. And that's okay, because that's really what happens. It all sort of combines, it all works together. And sometimes you put a bit more of the crimson in your colour, and sometimes maybe a little bit more blue. It's totally up to you. When you do your sky, you can do whatever you like. Have a look at skies when you're out and about. I'm always staring at the sky. I was at work this morning and there was a funny looking moon. It was really strong, really sort of golden yellow around it. And there I was staring at it, trying to work out the colour of the clouds. And the person I was working with, I could see he was watching me watching the moon. And I think he wondered why I was staring, because I don't tell everybody at work that I'm a painter, because if you do that, they'll want their dogs and cats painted, and I've got another one of those to do. I was trying to avoid, and I don't want any more, because when you're painting people's pets, you don't have time to have fun like this. So I'm just throwing some crimson in. Yeah, if you want to be doing commissions forevermore, do a good job on a portrait of someone's dog. You'll be getting requests forever. So I'm looking at putting some smaller clouds in there in the distance, just spread in the paint. If you're wondering what brush I'm using, it's a brush I've had donkey's years, but I've never used it. It's a maybe I've used it once. It looked like it hadn't been used. It's a artist, Winsor & Newton artist brush. I got them on eBay at bargain price once. And I thought, oh, I'll use that brush. So I'm just putting in this same colour in the background, because I'm using that as my background material. Who knows what's back there? Hills, trees, all sorts of stuff back there. And it seems to take on the colour of the clouds, so I've left it like that. And then we can think about what we're going to do when we put our next layer in. Yeah, this scene was at the bottom of this great big hill, really steep hill as well. I parked my car at the top of it and walked down, and I knew there was going to be a good scene. I knew there would be a few, actually. I did get a few pictures of really nice scenes, and the sun was out just at the right time. And I was very happy. Doesn't take much to make me happy. A nice scene, a nice landscape, And my smile's from ear to ear. And I get the same smile when I'm painting. When I'm painting a nice landscape. Get the big smile, the big painter's smile. And that's what you want. You want that painter's smile coming out. You don't want to be doing stuff you don't want to do. And I mentioned that dog portrait that I've got to do now. I'm only doing it because it's for a friend, but usually I avoid them like the plague. It's funny because when I first started painting, I thought that's what we should be doing. We should be getting stuff like that. Get commissions and do people's pets and portraits and stuff. That's what you want. That's what I thought. And I started to realise it's really not me. I kind of like doing them sometimes, but I'd rather be creative myself. I mean, you've got to do it. If you need the money, you've got to do it, haven't you? It's kind of another reason why I'm doing this portrait. I need the cash, so I'm going to have to do it. But I've done portraits for people that have left work. I did a portrait for a mate when he retired, and he absolutely loved it, and that gives you a good feeling. That makes it worthwhile. Shocked a few people actually. So I'm looking at areas where there's more blue in there, and areas where I can put more crimson. And I keep sitting right back and having a look, because then I can see the whole painting. If you're sat there up close all the time, you can't see your whole painting, and I can guarantee when you stand back or sit back and have a look, you'll see something that you want to do or you want to change, because you're just too close to it. You can't see what you need to do. So I was thinking about showing the picture that I'm using, but it looks so different to what I paint. There's no real point. Because I tend to use things for reference, like for colour maybe, or for a composition idea, or for like shape design or something. I don't like to keep strict to what I've got. I like to go with whatever I do when I'm painting. Freedom, you see. Freedom as an artist. You see how I'm holding the brush and where it's sort of held. Gotta explain how I'm holding that. If you watch how I hold the brush, look, I'm not holding it like a pencil. I'm just allowing. Wait again. It's going to happen again. But the way you hold the brush, it makes it a lot easier to control the paint, especially with the technique where you want to feel the paint. And actually, a lot of the times when I'm painting, after I've scrubbed in the base colour, a lot of the times you can't. No, a lot of the time. I'll try and speak eventually. I just put my teeth in. Ping. Yeah, a lot of the time the paint and the how do I explain this? The brush doesn't actually touch the canvas. That's what I'm trying to say. The paint on the brush comes off without the brush touching the canvas because of the soft approach. The brush almost just glides, and that way you can feel the paint, and when you're putting it on, oh, it feels brilliant when you're doing it. You have to take my word for it. Try it. So I'm just scrubbing on this colour. It's a bit of brown, a bit of blue, a bit of chromium oxide. You can use sap green or phthalo green, it's up to you. So the reason I'm scrubbing it on like this is because I want it to be really thin. So why have a thin paint? Why do I not want too much paint on there? Well, because then I can put other paints on there, like a lighter or a darker, and because there's not tons of paint on there, it will mix. It won't all get polluted by that one colour harshly. It'll be like a light tone of that colour. I hope that makes sense. So the scrubbing part is actually probably the hardest part of this painting. Every now and then I'll add a little bit of yellow ochre, or a little bit of the brown, or a little bit more of the green. But you can see some of that red is still showing through, and I don't mind that. That's what it's there for. I got this idea actually using this colour from Turner, one of my art heroes. He tended to use a reddish brown for his base coat, and he used to use chromium oxide. So, hat tipped to one of the greatest British artists ever. When I was in London with Clive, and we went into the Tate Britain to have a look at some of Turner's paintings, and I got to see his sketchbook in there, and I was blown away at the skill level. He's a supreme master of watercolours, of painting in general actually. Painting and drawing. I learned a lot actually from looking at his paintings. So I'm getting a bit of the burnt sienna, a bit of the yellow ochre which just slid into my cad yellow. So I thought, I'll put in some tree shapes or hills, just something in that background. See that purple batch that I put in? It actually looks like a lower part of the cloud now. Works quite well. So now I'm just blocking in a few tree shapes. So I've got trees going off into the distance there. And I'm not worried. Not worried about doing this. I'm just, like I said, staying free, enjoying myself, not overdoing things, just going for it and just putting a basic shape and then sit back and smile to yourself. because you know that this one is going to be your masterpiece. This is the one that's going to be in one of those books. You know those art books where you get a mixture of painters' paintings, and you're looking through them, marveling. Well, this is the kind of painting that I imagine in a book in 100 years' time. And they say, "Oh, here's a painting done by the not so famous artist Jason Bowen. Did a few YouTube videos." Who knows what they'll say in 100 years. But I do like looking at those books. Like I said, I like the old art books, I do. I like looking at the Victorian painters and before as well. I've got quite a few on English painters. Being an Englishman, might as well learn from my predecessors. I'm a big fan of all painters, though, worldwide. There's some fantastic ones out there to learn from, isn't there? Rembrandt. What a painter. The Dutch masters, wow. There's quite a few of them I like. So I'm grabbing some yellow. There's a bit of red in there as well. Bit of white. So a lot of the times when you're colour mixing, you'll just do it. Once you've mixed a few colours, you won't even need to think about it, and you just sort of, I don't know how to explain it. It's almost like a musician. They get so good at playing an instrument, they can just play it and they're not thinking about what they're doing, they're just making music. And I think it's the same situation with painting. You get so used to your paints. I mean, I'm so used to this set of paints. I know what's going to happen, and so I'm not thinking about how to paint. I'm not thinking about what colour mixes to do. I'm just doing it, and that way you're just making great art. You're making the best painting that's ever been painted. This side of England. I've got to big myself up, you see. When I was painting this, I was bigging myself up. I was telling myself, I've said this before. You tell yourself, this is it. This is going to be the best painting anyone has ever seen. You have to big yourself up because no one else will. Got to do it yourself. And because everybody else is just concerned with themselves. We're all about ourselves, really. A lot of people I notice when you talk to somebody and you tell them about something, and then they want to tell you about something that they've done that's sort of connected to that story, and they're more interested in what they're telling you than what you're telling them, and you'll be more interested in what you're telling them than what they're telling you. I'm not sure why I was saying that now. So I got a bit darker now after I've put the lighter area in, which is kind of like the back of the tree for this one. And I'm putting in the middle of the tree, putting some branches in there. Now when you have these trees, oh dear, that branch got a bit dodgy, had to fix it. You notice I'm staying with this big brush. Well, I try and do as much as I can with the biggest brush. Now, that is not always a good idea, because you can get carried away and start making massive branches like I did. But now you know that happens, you can be a bit more restrained. You've got an advantage over me. Then you get to a point where you need to use this brush, the liner. So the dark colour is a mixture of burnt umber and ultramarine blue. A lot of painters don't have black on their palette, and instead of using black, they make black, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with using black. I couldn't care less either way. But if you're wondering how to make a black that you can control more, then a good idea is to use burnt umber and ultramarine blue, and then if you put more blue in it, it's cooler. If you put more brown in it, the umber, it's a bit warmer, so you can mess around with your black. You've got a bit more control than, say, an ivory black. Kind of. Because who's to say you can't just throw in a bit of red in the ivory black or a bit of yellow and you can change that as well. Yeah, it's true. But it's that old thing again, getting used to your colours, getting used to your palette of colours. And a lot of the old books, what they recommend is to stick to a palette of colours, and that's it. That's your palette. But I wouldn't be so rigid if it was me. I've never been that rigid. I've always gone for different colours just to see what they're like, and why not? We like to experiment as painters. We like to see what Naples yellow looks like, and then, or maybe we want to try out Venetian red. It's one of the colours I make, Venetian red. I like it. Maybe we want the paints that the masters used to use. Maybe we want to use chromium oxide like I do. Yeah, I like chromium oxide now. I'm really starting to connect with it. It's quite a natural green when you start mixing it. But you know, you could mix it with the same colours, with ultramarine blue and cad yellow and a red of sorts. You can do the same. So I'm just throwing in a bit of yellow, a bit of burnt sienna. What colour that is. Burnt sienna is a great one for the palette. If you haven't got burnt sienna on the palette, ooh, you're missing out. Such a good colour because you can use it for a lot of things, especially for portraits. I used it a lot in a portrait I did. And it's a quick colour mix, isn't it? Straight out the tube. So I'm just looking and putting in this bit more darker areas, and I'm using a I think that's a filbert brush, and I'm just lightly holding it. Look at the way I'm holding it. Have a go at holding a brush like that. If you haven't held your brush like that, have a go. You'll be amazed at the control that you get. You can see your brush really well, and you can feel it a lot better as well. It's like the way holding the knife is a similar sort of method. You get a bit more feel to it. So when you're doing your trees, just do them the way you want them to be. I'm kind of doing an impression here. When I started this painting, actually, I thought to myself, how am I going to paint this? What style am I going to paint in? And I thought to myself, I'm not going to paint in any style. I'm just going to paint it the way I want to. The way I want this to be painted, I'm just going to paint it. And if it's different methods and different styles all mixed in one, I don't care. because it's my painting and I can do what I like. So it's the same with you. It's your painting. You should do what you like. Paint it the way you want to paint it. If you're interested in sort of an impressionistic kind of loose feel, maybe this style will be good for you. So I'm picking up a little bit of this white. There's a hair stuck in the paint there. There's a bit of light in the back there, so I thought I'd better put it in. And there's a bit more light on that grass in the background. And I was trying to think how I'm going to put it in. So I didn't want the white to be too white, so I dipped it into my yellowy colour. There we go. You can paint the background, even though you painted in front of it. You can paint behind it. Don't worry about that. There's no order. There's no rules. I've heard people say there's no rules in painting. No, that's wrong. I've heard people say there is rules in painting. It's like, what? Where have they learned? There is no rules. The way you create your craft, the way you get your picture on the canvas, there is no rules. That's what that means. So I'm just getting a bit more of that yellow where the light's hitting, getting a bit more of that warmth. You get a bit more warm yellows and reds where the light hits. Well, on a day like this anyway. On a cold, icy day, maybe you wouldn't get such a warm colour. So getting into some red, so there's some burnt sienna in there and some cad red, some cad yellow just going in there, look. You put the cad red and the cad yellow together and you get sort of a cadmium yellow deep, beautiful orangey yellow. So I'm just indicating these bits of tufts of grass and bits that stuck up. Just doing little strokes, just putting them in, not worrying, and then softening them back with a brush. Same. And I get like this feel when I'm doing this. I get a weird feel and I just sort of flow the brush around. It's funny, you start forgetting things when you're painting like this. You get into the zone and you just forget things. You're just doing it. You're having fun. Using the liner, just putting some little details. There's loads of bits of old grass, because this was this original photo was autumn time when everything was just starting to turn, and I totally forgot about the photo, and then I was looking through my pictures to see what I could paint because it was too cold to go outside. I didn't fancy it. And I was like, oh, that's a good one. I remembered that day, and I was amazed at the scene, and I thought, oh yeah, that'd be perfect. So I thought I'd go for it. So I thought, right, I need to get this scrubbed in. getting some of the burnt umber, chromium oxide, yellow ochre. That's yellow ochre. I want to make quite dark but autumny green. And then the same system again. Throw in some more burnt sienna there. More yellow ochre. So if you're wondering what palette that is, it's a wooden one. It's a about perfect size to fit in the fridge. Which is why I like it. So then I can cover it with cling film, put it in the fridge, and then use it again tomorrow. Never lose any paint that way. So I'm using brush strokes here to create the tree shape. I'm not worrying, remember, don't worry, just do. There's no point in worrying when you're painting, because it doesn't make any difference. It'll just affect your brush strokes if you're putting worried brush strokes in. You want to be putting in confident, masterful brush strokes in. I always remember what this bloke said to me once when I had some paintings up in this gallery. And I says, I'm after some critiques. You might have heard me say this before. And I was like, yeah, I'm after some critiques. It'd be good to hear what you say. Because he was an artist. And he goes, well, they look a bit laboured. And I had no idea what he meant. And I said, what do you mean by laboured? He's like, well, it looks like you've spent a long time working on them and working on them. And I said, well, I have. And me thinking that's a good thing. He says, well, you probably should not take as much time on them. And then he left. His wife told him off. And I was like, oh, what does he mean? And it wasn't until a long time later that I worked it out. It wasn't until I looked at our friend, our art teacher, Rembrandt, that I realised what he meant is you don't need to do millions and millions of brush strokes on anything. A few brush strokes can be as powerful as 100 brush strokes. I didn't realise that. So I'm just rolling the brush around there, look. Pretending I know what I'm doing. The only reason I look like I know what I'm doing is because I know how to fix paintings. And when you know how to fix a painting, yeah, you don't need to worry so much. Doesn't mean I'm amazing. Well, gotta tell yourself. Like I said, you gotta tell yourself you are. So something I realised as well, when I was in the museums looking at paintings like Monet's, Van Gogh's, or Van Gogh, or however you say it, my heroes, Cezanne, Pizarro, Degas, Sargent, cracking painters, all in this room, and the one thing that I noticed about all of them is there's a lot more paint on there than I originally thought. So when you're doing your painting and you want an area to be painted, you want to pour that paint on your brush. Not pour it on your brush. You want to get a load of paint on your brush and put the paint on and paint. Do the painting with your paint. Don't be stingy with your paint, because they're not, and you want your painting to look like it belongs in the museum alongside theirs. So, but then someone at the back of the class is saying, well, I don't want to paint like them, they're impressionists, I want to paint with thin oil. I was like, well, you could do that as well. See, no rules. No rules in your technique. They all work. Another of my favourite painters, Thomas Gainsborough. Fantastic. And John Constable. Brilliant. When you start getting into painting, you want to start looking up all these masters that I mentioned. Start looking at what they've done. Another one, Goya, the great painter. Some really, really good painters out there, and we have the ultimate, the ultimate reference these days. We can just type it on the computer and bring up unbelievable paintings by all these great painters. I mean, I'm talking about painters from the history as well. There's a lot of fantastic painters alive now. I mean, there's one that I can think of straight away, a really great painter. Definitely one to like and subscribe to. This guy, very modest, very humble, likes to wiggle his liner brusher around and create branches and stuff. And yeah, his name's what is it again? Jason Bowen, I think. English painter. Oh, he's fantastic. The critics are raving about his work. In fact, his paintings are now worth 10 million each. Oh, yes. So I'm throwing in some yellow ochre into the white. We'll get back on track here. Some burnt sienna. Bit of cad red. See, what I'm trying to make is an autumny colour. And I'm thinking, oh, it's not autumny enough. A bit more yellow. There's a bit of green in there as well. More burnt sienna. I do like burnt sienna. Oh, it's such a nice one. Such a useful colour. Very useful. Right, look at how I'm holding that brush. This isn't the way an impressionist holds the brush, by the way. This is the way I like holding the brush. This would work for you. I bet if you hold the brush like that, I bet it would work. So I'm trying to think directional strokes, thinking about the direction of the leaves and the way I want this tree to feel. I want there to be a lot of life in this painting. I don't want this painting to be static, and that's kind of why I like doing brush strokes. I put too many brush strokes in one spot there. I didn't like that, but then I thought, oh, I can use that for paint. It's an old technique. A lot of painters would put paint on the canvas and then they would grab the paint from the canvas, so they don't even need the palette. to remolding this, bringing this together, bringing it out, bringing some leaves out forward, and then letting the darker colours go backwards. And you can see some of that orange, it shows through, and I'm okay with that. I quite like that. It's doing its job. Adds a bit of variety in my colour as well, which is good. And if there's an area that gets a bit too bright, I can just move it a little bit, dig it out, like I was doing with that paint. So this is a very freeing technique. I remember when I first tried it, I found it quite difficult because I didn't know. It's a bit like anything. When you have a few goes, it's quite hard. But then you get used to it. I think if I was to start from the beginning, I would have told myself to be a little bit reserved doing this, because I wanted to go for it and I was going like get the paint on there, but you need to sort of hold yourself back a little bit. You want to be passionate, you want to be painting, you want to be, as Bill Alexander would say, firing in your paint. But you kind of also want to hold that back in as well. You want to hold something back, and for me that's a kind of balance that I needed. But you know, you might be different. You might need pulling out more and going for it. You might be too wimpy with your brush, but then again you might be over the top and you need reining in further back. Oh, hiccups. So I'm getting a bit of light now, getting a bit of light colour. So we're using different shades. So we've got a darkish, a lighter. You could add a bit of red in your colour. You could do all kinds of things. I really want to get that brush off me and paint this with me. I absolutely love doing this. It is so amazing. I love it. I really do. I can't wait to get the brush and do another painting. I'm itching to do a painting. I hope these videos inspire you to do paintings, because they really do inspire myself by watching myself. A bit strange. So I'm just putting a little bit of that colour on these trees in the background, because I dulled it a little bit because I thought that was a bit light. If you move it around a bit, it picks up that undercolour and just disappears a bit. So we need a bit of unity. We need to use that colour that we've used in that tree, in these trees, to get them working together, get the painting working together. We've got this big tree with these autumn colours, but then on the other side they weren't autumny, they didn't belong, so we needed to bring them together there. Now I'm getting some of this more that burnt sienna. This is where my brain works faster than my hand, and I want to really get this paint in there. Do you ever get that when you're painting and your brain is working quicker than your paintbrush? So I'm putting some little yellow ochre marks there. There's some dark, there's some lighter, some green. I didn't mix that green very well, so I started mixing it on the canvas. See, I started adding some brown and yellow ochre in there while I'm painting. So what I want to project here is that this land goes up. We want this land to come down, and then it goes up into that dark bit, then it goes across, and you're doing that with brush strokes. Look at that, brush strokes. Directional brush strokes are they're so easy, but they're so effective. I say easy. You have to think a bit. Just practice though, isn't it? Everything is practice. And as they say, practice makes perfect. Sometimes I wonder what the art critics would say that used to say that my paintings sucked. What would they say now? Probably still say the same thing, maybe. But I have to say, I mean, I'm not joking. I really like this painting. And I really enjoyed painting it. And if you do a painting that you really like and you really enjoy doing it, I think that's fantastic. I think that's a win, isn't it? Because when you enjoy something so much, it shows in the painting as well. If you're not liking the painting that you're doing, it will show in it. People look at it and they'll see it. Because they say that a painting, when you do a painting, you're projecting your own emotion. And for me, I was happy, enjoying myself, loving the technique, loving the painting, just really going for it. And hopefully that shows in the picture. The happiness and everything else. I've got a few more planned actually. Hopefully you'll enjoy them. It's good to see different painting styles, I think. And just noticed there's a bloke in the picture sat under the tree. It does almost look like there's a guy there. It's a bit weird. Yeah, I'm going to start introducing paintings with people in them, dogs in them, horses in them, all sorts. It's going to get interesting on this channel. So if you haven't subbed, if you're not a subscriber, time for you to subscribe, because it's exciting times. Things are going to get very, very interesting. So there we go, that's the finished painting. I hope you enjoyed watching this one. I really enjoyed painting it, and I think it's a fantastic episode, even if I do say so myself. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to press the like button and subscribe and share and help me make this channel popular. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you at another one. Cheers, bye.